If we could have all the speakers that are on program come to the front at this time. If you are a speaker, if you would come to the front at this time. Good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Human Trafficking Awareness Kickoff and Press Conference. I am Kenneth Allen. I have the privilege of serving as the Indiana Trafficking Victim Assistance Program Director, which is one of the programs of Indiana Youth Service Association, which you'll hear a little bit about more here shortly. But first of all, I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause for bearing the cold and being with us today, all right? As you may know, that today kicks off one of the signature events of National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, which is the entire month of January. Today specifically marks National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and so we thought it fitting to recognize this very horrible crime. Even though this is a horrible crime, we have hope because we know that the more people that are educated about the issue learn to identify and recognize and report it. And so we're excited to share a little bit more about this initiative and about our plans for the rest of the month. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today I would like to introduce Megan Leahy, the Indiana Youth Service Association Board of Directors Chair. Megan.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Like Kenneth mentioned, my name is Megan Leahy and I am the president of the Indiana Youth Services, or IYSA, Board of Directors. First of all, let me start by thanking you all for being here today and everything you do for the state of Indiana, whatever your role might be. My goal today is to give you a brief history of the Indiana Youth Services Association and our human trafficking services and education. IYSA has served as the leading advocate for Hoosier youth since it was founded in 1973. We have grown from just a handful of Youth Service Bureau member agencies to 29 in 2022. Through partnerships, grants, endowments, and hours of hard work from staff and volunteers, we are able to lead our member agencies in our four core roles: advocacy, delinquency prevention, community education, and information and referral. But moving on to what brought us here today, human trafficking by definition involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sexual act. While we do not know exactly when it started, we do know that human trafficking has been around for centuries. From big cities to small rural areas, it is a worldwide epidemic that is happening every day in every country. What brought me to IYSA, though, was our Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, or ITVAP. Personally, I've always been passionate about anything regarding human trafficking. As a former law enforcement officer myself, I have worked firsthand with survivors. Our goal, IYSA and myself, is to educate the Hoosier community about human trafficking awareness and to give assistance to those that need it. The ITVAP program was created in 2015 to bring awareness, increase identification of trafficked youth, and increase service resources to meet those needs. Through school, community, and professional programs, ITVAP has provided training or services in all 92 Hoosier counties, serving over 18,000 youth and nearly 36,000 adults. ITVAP is funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice's Office for Victims of Crime, or VOC, and it collaborates with a number of other local and state organizations. Some Indiana trafficking facts that you may not know, or possibly do. Since its inception, ITVAP has served 3,818 individuals in the state of Indiana. Every one of the 4,500,000 adults in Indiana are mandated reporters, which means it is your responsibility to report suspicions of child maltreatment to either law enforcement or DCS. And despite what you see on TV and the movies, over 90% of human trafficking victims and survivors know their trafficker prior to being trafficked. It is not always that suspicious white van down the street. It could be friends, classmates, employers, or even family members. That last stat is disturbing, isn't it? 90%. IYSA is a leader in best practices for youth work in Indiana. While we continue to learn from individuals with lived experiences so we can effectively address the needs of those impacted by human trafficking, we hope that every Hoosier can become an advocate for each other and educate themselves about how prevalent this is in our state and the country. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Megan. This day could not have happened without the hard work of some very important people, and particularly our staff. And so I want to recognize all the staff of Indiana Youth Service Association. Would you just raise your hand at this time, all the staff of Indiana Youth Service? Let's give them a round of applause, please. I also see some elected and appointed officials in the audience. We want to thank them. If you are an elected or appointed official, would you just wave at us at this time as well? Thank you all for being here as well. This time I would like to introduce State Representative John Barlett, who is definitely passionate about the issue of human trafficking, fighting it and eradicating it in our state. Representative Barlett represents House District number 95. At this time, I would like you to receive Representative Barlett.
Good morning and thank you. Human trafficking is probably one of the, I believe, the worst crime that one could commit. And I've been able to work with some of my colleagues in the House to eradicate some of it or make laws and policy to do something about it. But my job today is to read the resolution that we have. They're going to start making this print a little bit bigger too. State of Indiana, Indiana General Assembly, House Concurrent Resolution number 4, introduced by Representative John Bartlett, Wendy McNamara, sponsored by Senators Michael R. Crider and Gregory G. Taylor. Adopted by voice vote during the first regular session of the 122nd General Assembly, a House Concurrent Resolution recognizing January's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Whereas there is an opportunity to raise awareness about human trafficking by recognizing January's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Whereas human trafficking is a major public health, human rights, economic justice, and social justice issue in the United States and throughout the world. Whereas promoting the education and raising awareness to the state of Indiana will allow all Hoosiers the opportunity to stand with survivors of human trafficking. Whereas it is important to recognize the strength and the resolve of these survivors. Whereas it is important to believe them and provide them with a voice. Whereas it is important to remind them that they are not alone. Whereas it is critical that those seeking help or services have access to trauma-informed service centers and treatment. Hoosiers must work together to educate one another about human trafficking and pursue ways to prevent human trafficking by addressing the systematic root cause behind the issue, which include oppression, violence, exploitation in communities. Whereas Indiana continues to collaborate with local, state, and federal stakeholders such as advocacy groups, law enforcement agencies, mental health professionals, medical professionals, educators to identify, prevent, respond effectively to, and ultimately eliminate human trafficking. Whereas all Hoosiers have a stake in preventing human trafficking and all Hoosiers have the power to make a difference. Whereas all Hoosiers have the ability to promote dignity and respect for one another, strengthen the fabric of the Hoosier communities, and build a safe and more just world. And whereas all Hoosiers are encouraged to wear blue on January 31st in the House in honor of victims and survivors of human trafficking. Whereas all Hoosiers, therefore be it resolved that therefore be it resolved the House of Representatives of the General Assembly of the State of Indiana, the Senate concurring, Section 1, that Indiana General Assembly recognizes January as Human Trafficking Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Barlett, who is got to shout this out, an IPS grad. Yay, IPS. That's my personal shout out for IPS. To do an event like this in a pandemic, especially when you have 70,000 visitors in town, creates some challenges, and I just want to shout out Representative Smith, who allowed us to store some of the items for this press conference in his office. So thank you, Representative Smith, for that, and thank you for being here as well. Next, we would like to introduce State Representative Wendy Mcnamara, who represents House District number 76. She is extremely passionate about the issue of eradicating human trafficking. As a former educator, I know she knows the importance of particularly our educators learning and understanding the importance of recognizing the signs for human trafficking. So with that being said, please welcome Representative Wendy Mcnamara.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program for the invitation to speak today. I also want to recognize Linda Reich from Not Today here to support us, and Superintendent Doug Carter. And then as I look at all of the legislators that are standing out here and have come around to see what's going on today. And for those of you who are in the trenches every day, thank you for what you do on the behalf of victims in our state. I wasn't aware of really what human trafficking was until I became a legislator, and that was after 16 years in education. So it became one of the major issues that I focused on, and the opportunity to speak today gave me the time to reflect over the last 12 years and all the pieces of legislation that I had authored or sponsored. And while I looked at that list as pretty impressive at the accomplishments towards eradicating human trafficking, much is still left to be done. And so human trafficking, when we think about it, it's absolutely deplorable. To combat it, it's going to require strong collaborative effort by leaders across the state of Indiana and people just like you. Traffickers aren't intimidated by laws, they're not intimidated by words, they're not intimidated by borders. It's my attempt to make every effort to disrupt their daily business and the way that they do life. So if we are able to disrupt this, that's a victory for our victims in our state and potential victims in our state. This session I authored House Bill 1081. 1081 is an effort to end human trafficking in Indiana, or at the very least disrupt this horrible business. As you know, human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry. In 2019 in Indiana, we had 157 victims of human trafficking. 40 of those were under the age of 18. And if you look back at statistics, there have been kids as young as 7 years old who have been trafficked. And it's just absolutely deplorable and disgusting to think about that. So that's what guides my passion and moves me towards bills like this. Tomorrow, House Bill 1081 will be heard in my committee at 10:30. It's going to modify what's the definition of a protected person. And so if a person who is less than 14 years of age at the time of victimization, it allows them to extend those protections until that victim is 18 or at the time of the trial. What that protected person basically means is they can have videotape testimony so that they do not have to relive the assault or the victimization in front of a court. So it will extend that, because currently it stops at 14. So hopefully that particular section will allow our victims a little bit more solace when they have the opportunity not to have to confront the defendant. The second thing that it does, the next thing that it does is actually get rid of that third-party payment system. A lot of the traffickers require the payment straight to the human trafficking victim, and therefore the major organization is left off the hook. So it will provide key changes to the exchange of payment for a human trafficking victim. It removes the requirement of payment to a third party. It also simplifies the language around what constitutes the payment or benefit already established in statute. It says that a person who knowingly and intentionally pays or offers or agrees to pay money or other property or offers a benefit for a human trafficking victim or for an act performed by a human trafficking victim is going to be a level 5 felony. The next section will create additional language that will make it a level 4 felony if the human trafficking victim is less than 18 years of age. It does not provide a defense to the prosecution that the human trafficking victim consented or if the person was believed to be under the age of 18. I firmly believe that regardless of how you look, if you are under 18 and you are a human trafficking victim, you should be penalized to a greater extent. And the final section, which I think will help us greatly as a state, will require law enforcement to contact the Attorney General within 30 days when they open a human trafficking investigation. Northern Indiana could be connected to Southern Indiana. This ring could be acting across the whole entire state. It could be out of Tennessee coming to Southern Indiana and then going to Northern Indiana. If we are aware through one central hub, if you will, of how the human traffickers are moving in our state, hopefully we will be able to target these trafficking organizations and get rid of them in the state for good. And finally, I just want to say that human trafficking is not an issue that's just occurring overseas. It's not something that's just occurring in other states. It's happening right here in Hoosier communities. We need to address this crime by implementing stricter penalties on those who not only directly participate and profit from human trafficking, but for those who promote it as well. I am proud to be joined by all of you today in the fight to combat human trafficking in our state and bring justice to those victims who can't always speak for themselves, but hopefully they recognize that we're here to speak for them and eradicate this horrible crime in our state. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Representative McNamara. I do see two people I definitely want to recognize. I see our state auditor. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a firm believer that prayers move heaven, but money moves earth, and so she makes sure that the money in our state flows like it needs to flow. So thank you for being here. And I also see him hiding, our superintendent of Indiana State Police, Doug Carter. Thank you so much for being here as well. This time I have the privilege of introducing someone who I have a profound level of respect for. She is a colleague. I'm fortunate to work with her every day. She is our Service Support Director, Whitney Nixon.
Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person, and it can occur in any community. Human trafficking is the business of stealing freedom for profit, and it occurs in cities, suburbs, and even the rural areas of Indiana. Human trafficking victims live and work where we can see them, but most people don't, because most people don't know what to look for. In 2015, the Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, also known as ITVAP, was created to address the growing needs related to human trafficking in the state of Indiana. Since that time, over 3,800 individuals have received services from ITVAP and its partners, and over 54,000 people have been trained in human trafficking awareness and education. But one of the common challenges in working in the field of human trafficking is the lack of knowledge and understanding regarding this topic. As a result, victims often go unidentified and unserved. From identification to assessment to treatment, it takes entire communities to ensure the safety and well-being of some of our most vulnerable members. Each of us has a role to play, and through education and awareness, we can highlight the scope of the human trafficking problem here in Indiana. though there are many challenges to meeting the needs of trafficking victims, an effort to create a comprehensive approach across multiple systems of care, which is an approach that ITVAP holds in high regard and works to ensure is occurring across the state, offers the promise of responding to victims where they need it most. In addition to assessing a client's physical and mental health, it's important that providers working with victims have access to a range of trauma-specific interventions that can be used to address the needs of victims and survivors. Because trauma is truly the cornerstone of human trafficking. Victims of human trafficking may suffer from PTSD, anxiety, major depression, substance use, eating disorders, or a combination of all of these symptoms. For some victims, the trauma that's induced by someone they once trusted results in a pervasive mistrust of others and their motives. Because trauma is multifaceted and oftentimes difficult to navigate, providers working in the field dedicate significant time, energy, and money to become well-versed in the complex trauma experienced by most individuals involved in human trafficking. The ITVAP program partners with 52 organizations around the state who work tirelessly to address the therapeutic, life skills, and vocational needs of the human trafficking survivors they serve. The path to recovery can often feel futile, but every trigger conquered is a reminder of their courage, strength, and resiliency. Through continued efforts to partner with statewide organizations, ITVAP is working to ensure providers in the state of Indiana have the educational, therapeutic, and financial support they need to serve victims of human trafficking. Human trafficking is a complex topic, but understanding the complexities is the best weapon we have in the fight to end it. Support through education, legislation, funding, and appropriate services will assist human trafficking survivors to reach their potential and allow them to live the life that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there anyone here today that is not wearing the color blue? Anybody that doesn't have the color blue on? Any blue? Don't be, you can raise your hand, it's okay. I want to point you out. Sir, you don't have a lapel pin. Let me make sure you get a lapel pin. You, yes, you. We have these wonderful lapel pins on the table. We do ask that you take them, take a couple. As you all know, it's a struggle to get things into the State House. We want to make sure that we are able to give as much of this stuff away. I see somebody very important in the back, and I want to make sure I get paid this week. So I see the CEO of IYSA, David Westenberg. Would you wave at us, please? He likes to stay low key. Next, I would like to bring up Jessica Evans. Jessica Evans is currently, make sure I get your new title correct, founder and executive director of her agency, and I'll let her talk a little bit more about her agency. They've had a recent name change, but she is somebody that I know is super passionate, that does the work every day, and so we're so fortunate and privileged to have her here to talk a little bit more about our program. Jessica Evans, would you come at this time?
It is a privilege to be here with you this morning. Thank you for braving the cold to be out here and put human trafficking as a priority. I hope that today serves as a catalyst and an inspiration to continue the work of anti-trafficking in our state. As Kenneth mentioned, my name is Jessica Evans. I'm the founder and executive director at Allies, Inc. We have been in the nonprofit or in the anti-trafficking space as a nonprofit for over 10 years, and it's been really neat to see the growth and change in the anti-trafficking work being done in our state over those 10 years. From a handful of service providers just 10 years ago to where we are now, ITVAP is educating and resourcing service providers all over the state. We have more trauma-informed care that's happening, more people that are capable of housing and helping the girls that we serve at Allies. So we are committed to serving girls in particular who are survivors of trafficking and at risk for trafficking ages 12 to 24. So that's kind of the space that we work in. We have some prevention education that we do to help girls and youth that are at risk for trafficking to help prevent trafficking or rape victimization. And then kind of on the other end of the spectrum, we work with survivors of trafficking, females ages 12 to 24 and their families. So we help equip their families with education and support and resources to better support them at home. And then we have a mentorship program for these young ladies as well. And to kind of help paint a picture of who we're talking about here, I'm going to steal a play from Mr. Rogers. I love Fred Rogers, so anytime I can steal some of his material, I'm going to do it. So he was accepting an award at a ceremony one time, and he asked the audience, I'm going to ask you to do this, to think of all of the people in your life that have supported you to get to where you are today. Who had your back? Who could you call if you needed help? Who supported you from when you were a child to where you are today? I'm sure you've got some names and faces kind of flashing through your mind. Now I want you to consider, if you had had none of those people in your life at all, where would you be? What would you be doing today? How would your life be different? And further, if the people that were in your life were ones that manipulated you, exploited you, abused you, trafficked you, that literally is the narrative of the young ladies that we're walking alongside. That's their life, that's their story. And it's really easy when you think about victims of trafficking to kind of put them in a box and label them as, you know, a certain type of person, a runaway, a drug addict, maybe good for nothing, don't have very much education. It's easy to do that when you're not near them and working alongside them, but when you're in proximity with them and you see them every day and you get to see who they are and who they were created to be, you learn that they are some of the most resilient, creative, funny, passionate, compassionate, smart young ladies that you'll ever meet. And they change our lives for the better every day. And you know, trauma that happens through relationship has to be healed through relationship. So we're committed to being in a relationship with them and providing a healthy relationship moving forward. It's not an easy fix, a one and done type of thing. We are with them for the long haul because it's a journey moving forward. There's ups and downs, there's twists and turns, and they need someone to be walking with them. So we are that community. We're a healthy community for them. Just this past year, we've celebrated baby showers for young women who had no one to celebrate the birth of their child. We helped young ladies who graduated from high school look toward college, find their first apartment, get a new job, and work towards goals that they have for themselves. And sometimes I think if I was in their situation, I don't know that I could put one foot in front of the other, but they do, and it's remarkable. And it's because of the work of all of us collectively doing it together. So if I want to leave you with one thing, it's that the young ladies that we're serving, they are worth every ounce of your time, energy, effort, money. And so I just am grateful that this is happening, that we're together and that we're linking arms together to serve them. They are definitely worth it. So thank you for being here and thank you for being part of this day.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for the work that you do every day. As you see, we have people working on laws, people educating providers serving victims, but what we're missing is the education of the state. John with MS Communication is here to tell us and show us how we can educate Hoosiers in all 92 counties. John?
Thank you, Kenneth. Thanks to everyone for being here today. My name is John Griffin. I'm with MS Communications. And as Kenneth referenced, we're proud to fill an important role in this campaign to try and eradicate, throw off human trafficking. There are many things that go into it, right? In terms of, help and support services for victims and survivors. Laws and prosecution for traffickers, but it's education to everyday Hoosiers not directly involved with this that's important that our role is helped with. And that's why Indiana Youth Services Association and ITVAP worked with us at MS to produce a statewide media campaign that started yesterday. We've created messaging to educate Indiana on myths versus facts, because human trafficking, as has been referenced by several speakers, isn't always what you think it is. Things like it's not strangers, but often it's up to 90% of the traffickers actually know their victims. So it's addressing with the following elements, again, that launched yesterday. We have a website, seeandfreeindiana.com, that all of the marketing materials direct people to, where they can get more information on how to take action and get involved. There are radio PSA ads that are airing in all 92 counties across the state, social media and display video ads and display ads that are airing on, we even had a reference that one aired last night in the national championship game. But it's also going across all other many other platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And then there are window clings that are being distributed by volunteers and stakeholders in businesses throughout communities throughout Indiana. In addition to that, we also at MS developed a toolkit with instructions for ITVAP affiliates and stakeholders to use these same ad messages and the hashtag on their own organic posts, on their own channels, so it can extend the reach of the campaign. And messaging, as I said, started yesterday. It will go through February, delivering an estimated 10 million myth versus fact impressions. And we're proud to do our part and thankful to be a part of the campaign to try and help stop human trafficking here in Indiana.
Thanks, John. We're towards the end of our actual press conference, but before we let you go, we want to remind the elected officials and the program participants that we will take a picture directly behind me at the conclusion of this press conference. For those that are here, we do have a call to action. In our state, we also have the campaign that John mentioned in both English and Spanish. 40% of the victims we serve are victims of color, so we want to make sure that we're communicating in a manner that reaches the entire audience. So for those of you all that are here, at each corner there are some blue packets, and we're asking you to take these blue packets to your respective communities. Inside these packets they have 10 window clings along with information cards for employees. We're asking you to share these with businesses that you frequent, your dry cleaners, your grocery store, etc. in your community. We also encourage you to take pictures and post them on social media using the hashtag IndianaGoesBlue22 to recognize National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so we do have lunch that will be provided immediately after we take the photos. Let me check with my boss to make sure I got everything. We're good to go. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the staff of IYSA for making this happen, and you all enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, we all can do something to fight this horrific crime. Thank you.